Welcome back to the 2025 Tire Rack One Lap of America, presented by Grassroots Motorsport Magazine, with coverage this year brought to you by HP Tuners. Right now, Bryan and I are joined by Chad and Andrew of Team PGR. Gentlemen, please introduce yourself.
Chad Martin from Minnesota.
And Andrew DeConing, also from Minnesota.
All right, so let's get right off into it here. So you guys are back in the one lap this year. You have the distinction of running one of the very few, if not the only, electric vehicle in the one lap this year. You've had some great success in the past. You've had some not such great success in the past. Last year, it's no secret that Bryan and I were really rooting. We thought you guys were going to run away with the majority of it because we were very excited for the changes you had made. And it didn't quite go the way you had expected it to go. And now it's been a year. You've had time to plan and make changes. So what have you done? And what can we expect?
Well, like I said, we started a bunch of projects to maybe change a few things here and there. Nothing huge, nothing major, and none of them got to the finish line. So we put everything back in the way it was, because I think anybody who does this more than once realizes it's more about finishing than, and making sure it's reliable than trying a bunch of new stuff and not having it tested out. So we had some I don't know if they're big ideas, but maybe a few little ideas, and just decided to wait until we can test them out fully. So car is pretty much as it was. Yeah, this is our 6th year, so we're gonna go after it again, I guess.
So I guess, what about the platform? And because we see, and I guess it's particularly pertinent because we've seen a departure from electrification in a lot of manufacturers. So many are leaving it behind and going to look at different things. Namely, a lot of the subsidies are gone. But what is it about that platform that keeps you engaged with it?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're going to try and run the same car and get a different result this year. I think it's just interesting because it's different. It's 6 years ago it was wildly different. And with one lap, it's still wildly different. Yeah, like you said, there's not too many other people running them. There's certainly lots of benefits and drawbacks to running an electric car versus either hybrid or ICE or whatever. And yeah, I just enjoy doing different stuff. We're originally RX-7 guys, so we're consistently.
So you're gluttons for punishment from the start. I guess.
Yes. Right. Yep.
Again.
Different powertrain.
Fair enough.
I think there's a whole branch of wider conversations about the industries and how things are going. We certainly, with the Plaid, we were attracted to the 4-digit horsepower, and that makes up for a lot of weight, and that thing has a lot of weight. So it's I wouldn't say as a platform the Model S is stupendous, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's got some good qualities. It's got some quirks. It's got warts.
You seem to have you have hung up for
every other toad, whatever.
There you go. Well, we'll imagine some of what you said, but I think what we were arriving at. Yeah, you're a little frozen now, and you're frozen on your video. But I think what you were arriving at is that there's benefits and drawbacks to the vehicle. I mean, look, certainly what you guys have done is tremendously impressive. The effort over the past 6 years. I can tell you that you've kind of converted a lot of my thinking on electric vehicles and the performance of them, as I've seen you guys develop that platform and grow. And some of the drives have been pretty special. I mean, Putnam is an example to me in the wet, how that car just literally pulls itself over to the side and goes skedaddling on down the road pretty good, which is certainly impressive. So I think there's a lot of things that you guys are doing positive, and I'm curious to see what you're able to accomplish this year. Bryan, go for it.
So, we've probably got some people that are going to watch this that didn't see the interview with you guys last year. Tell us a little bit about the car, what you guys and what Mountain Pass have done for the car, just to, let us know how you guys are getting these insane numbers out of the Plaid.
Yeah, it is kind of an insane car. The stock car as you buy it. They advertise it at like 10, 20 horsepower. But it actually is, you know, when it's completely maxed out, temperatures are perfect, everything, it's close to 1100. That's what we've seen in the data. So you really don't have to do anything with the power, right? You start out with something that's pretty excessive. Everything else on the Plaid is kind of like old school muscle car sort of thing, where it doesn't want to turn, it doesn't really have great brakes. It's a modern interior and software and electronics and stuff like that, so it's very comfortable and everything. But yeah, in terms of like a car for the track, it's not, it doesn't come ready to go. So we gave it to Sasha after we got it. We got it in, we were pretty early. We got it in, I think it was late 21. Gave it to Sasha. Sasha kept it for almost 6 months and did kind of all the things that you'd normally see with a Plaid. So the suspension, it has air suspension, that's been all removed and replaced with 3-way adjustable KWs that Sasha spec'd. All of the suspension arms have been replaced with adjustable ones, or ones that have better, well, it would be less compliance in them. So that the steering is more consistent. In the rear, the Model S is kind of an interesting suspension design that gets a lot of bump steer. So there's been a correction kit for that. The brakes they start out really big, and now they're, you know, even bigger. We were playing around in some of the chats before. I was showing a pad from the track pack, which is, it looks like it's from a bus or something. It's the most gigantic thing you've ever seen in your life. But unfortunately, that was one of the projects Chad was talking about. We started it and we didn't finish. So we're still using the old, small 400 millimeter brakes. I was doing some calculations the other day. It was kind of interesting because they were talking a bunch about like F1 brakes. F1, you know, brakes, they're doing a little over 2 megawatts into the brakes for maybe 6 or 8 seconds, something like that. Our car, when we're doing, you know, one of the big braking events down from 165 to 80 or whatever, we do about 1.2 megawatts into the brakes. About 240 kilowatts of that goes back into the battery, of course, on regen, but everything else, so close to a megawatt, goes into the brakes. And you can tell, because when you watch the brakes, first of all, we have live temps on the car. So we know they're going up 900, 950C, which is pretty close to what the F1 brakes hit. But then also they start to glow. And the brakes as they are right now are pretty good. Certainly for most people, they're really good. But the power of the car kind of runs out after a few laps. And so the brakes are sized so that they kind of match what the power will do. So then the other thing that we've done with the car, or Sasha did with the car, is a bunch of aero changes. He made a custom 3D scanned and then formed carbon splitter in the front that has diffusers. That's pretty slick to get some front aero. And then on the back, he put on the gigantic wing from his time attack car. And we basically, it's such a huge wing that we kind of almost run it backwards. We have like, a negative angle of attack. Because we're just trying to balance the front, right? Such a big part. We also, last year, that was one of the things that we did. We added a third radiator. The car comes with 2 radiators, uses the AC to cool the pack. That's the biggest limitation of the power of the car, is pack heat. We stuck in a third radiator. When the temperatures outside are cool, it tends to work fairly well. But when it's hot, like when we went to, you know, Eagles Canyon a couple years ago or whatever, the difference between the coolant and the air is almost nothing. So, you know, you can have 10 radiators, it won't do that much. However, what we figured out is letting out air over the nose of the car, cut a big hole in for that third radiator into the hood, actually makes a big difference to the aero of the car. Instead, you know, you go 140, 150, 160. It used to be that the car would slowly raise up, start to feel less and less stable. Now it like digs into the track, gets more and more stable the faster you go. So I think that's most of what we've done. We have Martian wheels on the car, really wide, same size and width all the way around the cars. We can rotate. And then, I guess the other thing is the electronics in the car. So Sasha did a bunch. He's the Motec dealer for Canada, does all kinds of work with different ICE cars, EVs, OEMs. So in our car, he put in a Motec system that allows us to keep track of all the data, but then also he wrote software that allows us to control the power. I was saying, it's up to 1100. That's cool, that's great, but it won't only do that for like a minute or maybe 70 seconds. So what we actually do, and this is the other, I don't know, the other reason why I like driving this car is it's a very complicated optimization problem where we're trying to get temps to the right temp, the brakes to the right temp, the battery pack not to overheat. So we're actually lowering, most of the time, we're lowering the power of the car and then trying to deploy that power only when it saves us time. So
Right.
Andy Hollis described it as driving like you're driving for fuel mileage, which is kind of what we're doing. Only instead of the fuel being the critical thing, it's
It's the
how much
power.
heat we have in the pack. Yeah.
So I'm gonna dive into a few things that you were just talking about, and we're gonna geek out for a second because you're kind of speaking
Yeah.
to stuff that I really like to get into. And for anybody who this bores, I don't care. Watch another video. So we're getting into the setup part of it. So you were talking about the tremendous heat that the brakes are generating. Do you see that affecting you as the laps go on in terms of raising tire temperatures and the pressure in the tires as well, and sort of what's your delta there and how do you manage that?
Well, last year we tried for the first time tire warmers, which like some of the teams have run. It's sort of like a logistical nightmare.
I mean, you
There's
have a place to
obviously
plug them in.
we kind of have a place to plug them in. We don't actually have a place to plug them in on the car because there's no inverter for the thing.
Small change.
Yeah, yeah. They do have a new thing they just released where you can like plug it into the plug and then it goes to like 110 outlets. I don't know if that works with our car. Works with the truck, but yeah. I forgot what you asked.
So I guess what I'm asking is with the a lot of radiant heat that you're generating
Oh
from the
yeah.
brakes, is that playing havoc with your tire pressures as well as the laps are going on? Are you overpressuring at a certain point?
Yeah, so because we ran the warmers, the tires are actually the hottest when we drive onto the track.
Okay,
They only actually go down in temperature and pressure
as you're running.
because we were cranking them up. It depended on the track and our
Mhm.
sleep the previous night and ability to optimize. But when we got them real hot, the car is actually the fastest from the rip, from right from
Okay.
so yeah, it wasn't too bad. I think in previous years, yeah, it is kind of funky because the tires are coming up in pressure and temperature right as the power is starting to go down.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty funky problem.
Right, because you were talking about sort of the balance, and we'll get into that in a second. But staying on the topic of the wheels and tires for a second, obviously Tire Rack, One Lap of America, which is why we're diving into some of this. What
Yeah.
about the wheels themselves? I mean, is there ever a concern? Because I know a lot of them have either ceramic coating inside. How have you taken care of the issue of the heat degrading the metal on the wheels, or what's the plan there?
We haven't had to do much with the wheels. I mean, they're all bent to some degree or another, and we have to change them out after a while. But I think that's just the weight of the car. I mean, they're good wheels. They're forged wheels. They last a long time. But I don't think we haven't done anything sort of exotic to the wheels. The big thing on that car is managing the tire wear, not just on the track, and maybe even less so on the track. It's managing the tire wear on the road. With track semi or total track alignment. Heavy car, it wears out the tires quite quickly.
Sure.
So that's probably our number 2 or number 1 optimization problem. I'd say probably number 2 behind managing the power and the heat in the battery pack on the track. So I don't know that we do anything crazy with the wheels, but the tire warmers came about because we were giving up a lot of time just getting the tires to warm up when we had the most power, and then the power trails off on the second and third lap, and the tires finally come in, and it's like this weird crossing line of performance. So, yeah, I don't know that we've done anything magical with the wheels that I can think of. They're good wheels.
Well, I bring up the wheels simply just because from a safety element and also curiosity from how those types of temperatures that these cars are generating can impact. Because don't forget, I mean, just like the tires cycling through temps, the wheels are doing the same thing, and they are
Sure.
metal, whether it be aluminum, steel, whatever or composite. So they are going through changes and they are going through reforming chemistry wise. So after a certain amount of time, they will get brittle. They will sort of change the chemistry as they cool again. So something to think about as you move forward with them in terms of what
Sure.
that failure rate could be with very, very high temps. So, just something to consider. Um, moving into the aero portion of it. So you mentioned the sort of the time attack wing you have as backwards. So the front splitter, I'm assuming, is that generating a whole lot of positive front end for you, or how is that balance working out?
Yeah, I think Sasha did some work to try and measure it when he first set it up. I don't remember what he said. I think it's a few 100 pounds
Hmm.
at speed, 100 miles an hour, typical measurement speed. It's pretty good. We've been whacking it on the ground quite a bit because the whole car is pretty low now.
Right.
So it's probably doing a little less than it was, but yeah, the wing, it's basically running negative. If we're going that way, it's running negative angle of attack just to try and balance that at speed. The wing is good for something like 1,500 pounds
Yep.
at 150, so it's pretty substantial. We really could probably use more front end, but again, the problem is, with one lap, you got 3 laps to do, and we're trying to manage that energy. So any energy we put into aero, yeah, it helps us in this corner, but at the end of the lap, maybe it costs us. So it's all trying to optimize for time over the 3 laps.
Plus,
Absolutely.
of course, the risk on the road. I mean,
Hmm.
Yeah.
you can't have something that's half an inch off the pavement. So
Yeah. Well, and plus, as you talk about tire wear, if you're running more of an aggressive angle of attack, you're chewing up those tires very, very quickly. Unless you're running it as trim as you possibly can, on the road, it's just going to impact the tire wear too tremendously.
Yeah,
and it does.
yeah, it definitely does.
Hmm.
We were down at a certain track, let's call it Gateway, testing last week, and on the way back, just for fun, I took the wing off the car.
Hmm.
Because of course, when we're driving around on the road, I think the rated watt hours per mile, which is like kind of like miles per gallon, is like 275 or something like that. But when we drive around, we're doing like 400, and it's not necessarily, because we're driving super fast. Everybody else in the one lap, when they're in
Goes
Mexico, drives
exactly at a
super
speed limit.
fast. Yeah, yeah, drives exactly.
We're often
We
in
actually,
Mexico.
yeah, often. It's
It's crazy
surprising,
how
even
that
though it's
every year.
one lap of North America. But yeah, for us, we're driving the speed limit most of the time. So I took the wing off, and like at 70 miles an hour, not following anybody, something like that, it's like 20% energy usage
Yeah.
increase just from the wing. Pretty wild. The splitter helps us, not hurts us.
Yeah.
But the wing itself, yeah, big, huge drag coming off that wing. Pretty interesting.
Well, I'm gonna be following that closely this year because that's sort of a latent passion of mine in terms of aerodynamics and that fun stuff. So that should be fun, especially with what you've done with the front to kind of create that vacuum effect, I guess, and bring the front down more. So be very keen to watch that. Bryan, go for it.
Oh, I thought you'd asked everything. Wow. Um,
No, I was in one very specific area.
yes, you were. So, two things. Number one, what tires are you guys running this year? And two, what are things that you are looking to do to improve the car moving forward after this year's event?
Well, we decided to run the Goodyear Supercar 3s this year. We had been running Michelin. I think we'd run Michelin's every single year before that.
Yeah. Yep.
And generally we kind of default to the Michelin's just out of the fear of whether or not they were going to last.
Yep.
And last year there was some questions, and we've always finished, but the tires have looked a little ragged. I think that's not unusual
Yep.
for some of the teams. The Supercar 3 is just a fantastic tire on the track. It's so good in the dry, and it's reasonable in the damp, and we'll just, we have all-wheel drive for the rain. So, but it's a great tire. We're gonna make some adjustments to the alignment to try to give the tire a little more life, which is part of what we're working on here, kind of as the last piece of the puzzle for one lap. Some of the projects that we had been working on before, kind of we bailed out on them for one lap, was just some brake ducting, kind of using 3D printing. We've been getting into 3D printing, mostly Andrew. 3D design, I should say, parametric part design, and then 3D printing the brake ducts. We have a whole 3D printed brake duct on the front of the car that directs the air, through into the wheel wells. And then right now we've just got hoses that we stomped on in the garage to get them to fit around the tire. But that's one of the pieces. We're making some changes to the electronics to simplify some things there. And, one of the kind of weird quirks that we've had up until now with this car, since we moved the air suspension, is every time the car wants to do an update from Tesla, we have to unplug the Motec controller, plug the suspension controller back in so the car's happy when it does the update, do the update, plug the Motec back in, and then go through this whole process where we trick the computer into thinking that the suspension controller is plugged in and talking to, and it's kind of a pain in the butt. So then Mountain Pass Performance, to the rescue again, they developed a black box that you plug in, more or less. And then it should do all of that automatically. So, just more kind of getting around all the fancy electronics with the suspension.
Well,
other than that, it's just been kind of maintenance stuff. I don't, I think that big brake kit again. So Tesla makes a carbon ceramic brake kit that they call the track pack for that car, and they're gigantic brakes. So one of the things we started to play with was taking the calipers out of that kit and making a 2-piece iron rotor setup for it and brake pad set. So get a lot more mass in the brake pads, so they last longer, among other things. And then, maybe down the line, Mountain Pass might have a solution where, if somebody cooks their carbon ceramics and they don't want to spend another $10,000 to replace them, they can swap over to an iron setup and then, have a more reasonable, track enthusiast type setup. So.
Yep. Absolutely.
We switched around the wheel too. I think we've tried at least 4 different steering wheels. The stock, well, it's a plaid, and in 21 they all came with the yoke. Yeah, and the yoke is horrible for a number of reasons. I don't think there's probably any people who like the yoke listening to this, but we went to a Model 3 wheel first, and the Model 3 wheel is really nice. The original Model 3 wheel, there was a bunch of electronics in the column to try and make the car think that the wheel was the yoke and, do all the stuff right. And it worked for a while, but then, through the course of updates, eventually that stopped working, and they switched something that made it permanently not work anymore. So then we had at least one wheel that Chad got from, I think, China that, used the yoke electronics, and I don't know, that one didn't seem to work very good. And then we tried to get a new Model 3 wheel, because new Model 3 is very similar button design and everything. But it doesn't seem like that's going to work either. So in the end, we just went back to the Tesla spec Model S steering wheel.
The round one. They have a round.
Yeah, the round one. Yeah. They really, the car would benefit from having the variable rack like they have on the truck now.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Model S really needs a re-engineer kind of overall to get a bunch of updates. But it doesn't seem like they're doing that yet. So we'll have to hang on to what we got for now.
Very interesting. I did have more questions about sort of your wheel deflection and all that kind of stuff. If you could run more of a flat alignment for the road based off of the all-wheel drive difference, but we'll talk
That's what we
about that.
do. We do that.
That's, do you?
Yeah, we switch. So I don't know if anybody else is doing that or anybody else has ever done that. Yeah, we swap Chad's swapping the alignment back and forth between road and track every single time. And
Now, how do you do that in the Tesla? Is it something as simple as just putting the parameters in, or do you physically have to align things here?
No, that's a front upper control arm that Sasha and Mountain Pass designed, and he's got a shim system. So we just take shims out for the track and drop them back in for the road. And so when we drop back in for the road, it takes a little camber out, toes it in a little bit at the same time. So the tire wear is a little better. And then when we get to the track, take the shims out, toes it out a hair, and then brings the camber back into track spec. It's not a big change. I mean, we're going from like 3.5 degrees negative camber to 3 degrees.
Yeah.
So it's still pretty aggressive, but it at least I mean, we could get even more aggressive, but then I'm cranking on tie rods, and I don't want to do that every day, especially with no sleep. So, but the being able to drop a shim in, it's really hard to screw that up. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, what kind of deflection are you seeing on track from the wheels effectively under load?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know that we've measured that strictly. Like I said, to your point earlier, that car beats up wheels, in many different ways.
I mean, let's put it this way: a standard aluminum wheel, you're looking at between 2.5 to 3 degrees of deflection, right? So that's what I'm wondering on a heavy car like that, which is putting power down. That's why I'm wondering, like, does the actual power delivery help negate some of that because you're getting more inertia going as you're leaning? So I'm curious to the physics there to see if that's a little bit different. That's why I'm asking.
I would guess we tend to diamond corners more than other people to some degree. Maybe not everyone. I don't know. Andy's doing most of the driving, so he would have to say. But I would guess we're not carrying quite the same speed, but it is a heavy car. Through a corner, we're depending more than a GT3 RS on power, certainly. So, but yeah, it's a good question. I don't know that we haven't messed with that much, so it'd be a shop class for another time, I think.
But I do agree. I think the Goodyears are probably the best way to go. I think they'll manage the weight a whole lot better, stand up better on track. And it's interesting because I think the reign of Michelin is coming to an end right now. You are certainly not the first team who we've spoken to in the course of these interviews who's shifting from that sort of 4S guaranteed tire that 85-90% of the field was using. I think the 4S's are probably down. I'm going to say under 50% at this point, Bri. I got to say, in terms of what we're seeing. And it's interesting because that meshes with what we've heard from Tire Rack themselves when we were over there chatting with them. There's been a significant departure from a lot of these higher priced, high performance tires, and they're going more toward, well, I mean, certainly the Supercar 3s are not cheap. Right, they're certainly more of a premium offering, but there's been a big shift from sort of that tier A to some of the tier B and a few of the others. But for this, I certainly agree with that decision. I'm very curious to see, and I wish you all the luck this year on that one because I do want to see it go. I want to see you guys continue to improve this thing and embarrass some of the cars that, just by the virtue that they're quick, are up by the front, not necessarily the driver mods, right? So I think you're doing a phenomenal job. Bryan, I'll give you one of the last ones here.
So some of the tracks that we're going to this year, we were at last year. What are you which track overall are you looking forward to the most this year?
That's a good question. There was 3 tracks this year that I've never run at. The first one is Gateway. Gateway's kind of like Nashville-y a little bit, size-wise, time-wise. The first corner when I was going into it last week is like 160 plus, and it's like there's a wall there, and It's a little funky. It's kind of fun. Hedge obviously is a really nice track. The facilities are amazing. We've been to NCM lots of times. That's a fantastic track. Love up and down the hills there. For our car, for our performance, we really kind of want short tracks because of the battery.
So I should go to Spring Mountain and get the whole 6.4 mile circuit there. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that would not be great.
Or Miller or whatever
Ross.
it's called now.
Yeah, I mean Gateway at 1.6 is about as good as you can possibly do. I think NCM is like 3.3 or 3.4, something like that. So yeah, that's over 10 miles. That's pretty long for us. We ended up having to turn down the power. VIR is another one that I've never been to. I did go out there a few weeks ago, just to cruise around in a Avis racing team rental, which was pretty fun.
Woo! Fastest cars around.
Yeah, it was. I drove the whole track without using the brakes, and on 3 different kinds of tires. A couple of them. I think the Goodyear was definitely the best. There was I think one Goodyear, and it was in
Was
the
that
left
on the front left?
Yeah, it was the front left. Yep.
Sounds like
it was
our rental
pretty.
car last month.
Yep. It was pretty good. The right front was real bad. I don't know what that thing was.
That was
And then
probably like a Lionheart or something.
It was something I've never heard of before. Bunch of letters never heard of before. And then the 2 rears were actually the same.
Oh.
So it was pretty consistent left to right in the rear, which was helpful. It was fun. The VIR is fantastic track. I was there like 15 years ago. Didn't get to drive, but got to ride. So I kind of knew what to expect there. And then one of the fellow one lappers was there with their car, and they let me ride with them, and then also drive at the end too, so I could, go faster than 100 miles an hour, which is really helpful. So I'm super looking forward to VIR. Pit race, obviously we were there last year. Really, really fun track. We did really well there. And then Groton's the last one. Never been there either, but hopefully going to be there next week to test it out. So of all of them, I would say VIR is the one that I'm looking forward to the most.
Yep. And you'll have a little bit of a help with VIR, because rather than having to do a cool down throughout the entire lap, we're actually going to pull off at the south course, and then we'll be going back to the paddock that way. So that'll help alleviate some of the strain on your battery there. Although I don't know, Brian, is it longer to go back on the ring road there? I'm trying to think. It might actually be worse for them.
Yes, it's a lot longer to go back.
Yeah,
well, never mind. I've just screwed you guys.
The cooldown lap's not a problem.
Yeah, it doesn't make any difference.
It's time on wide open throttle. But yeah. No, I think VR is going to be great. It's such a cool venue. So
nice. Well, gentlemen, it's well, actually, before I wrap it up, let me ask you this. Obviously, it's a big undertaking what you guys do. You've mentioned a few of the partners that you have, but I want to open up the floor now for you to thank any sort of the sponsors, the providers that you have, any of the guys that work with you to help make this happen.
Yeah, well, Mountain Pass we mentioned, Martian Wheels we mentioned. Mountain Pass has been our biggest supporter by far, and just working with them is huge. It's so nice to have somebody that's got a real motorsports background and is a true engineer and really knows how to. I mean, I don't know if anybody's if you haven't had the chance, check out Sasha's videos on his 350Z. Is just bonkers what he does with that car. So we get little pieces of that thing flaking off in effect, as far as brilliance. But Martian Wheels, Goodyear is on board with us this year, and so we're super excited for that. I mean, the Supercar 3s are one thing, but man, you strap a set of those Supercar 3Rs on a car, and it's I mean, they're like so much better than the R comps that we ran 15 years ago. It's unbelievable how things have changed. But and then our charity sponsor is International Justice Mission, who we've had on for a couple 3 years now. IGM.org. We don't have a donation page this year, so a general donation, if anybody wants to do that, is great. But that's, I think, about covers it.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure chatting with you. This has been a very nerdy interview, but it's been very enjoyable for me at least. And since we're doing all these, that's what I care about. In any event, I hope you all have enjoyed it as well. Again, Chad, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us. For Bryan, I'm Solomon, and this is the 2025 Tire Rack One Lap of America presented by Grassroots Motorsport Magazine with coverage brought to you by HP Tuners. Team PGR, thank you so much. Thanks for watching. Take care.
Thank you.
Very. Whoa! I crashed my tractor.